Okay, folks, let's get right into it. Today we are diving into the book of Acts.
Ah, yes, the Book of Acts.
But the listener has given us a pretty interesting source.
Okay,
They've condensed the entire book down to just under 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Under 10 minutes,
Yeah.
which, you know,
Yeah, that's a tall order.
it's no small feat.
No, it is not.
So how does this source even attempt to capture the entirety of the book of Acts?
Well, I think they did a pretty good job of it, actually. They really focused in on, I think, some of the key themes of the Book of Acts. And this is a book that, details the spread of Christianity in the ancient world.
Right, and, speaking of spread,
Yeah.
the source starts out right away talking about the day of Pentecost,
Oh,
where the
Pentecost.
Holy Spirit descends on the apostles.
That's right. That's right. This is the, really the beginning of the church.
Yeah. How would you describe the events at Pentecost for somebody who maybe hasn't read it before?
Well, it's this dramatic event. You have the Holy Spirit descending upon the apostles who are gathered in Jerusalem after the ascension of Jesus. And it's marked by this event where all of a sudden they're able to speak in other languages. I mean, this is really miraculous stuff.
Yeah. I mean, they're speaking to people from all over the Roman Empire,
That's right.
and everyone can understand them in their own native languages.
And understand them clearly. Like, it's not even like they're kind of getting the gist. They're understanding exactly what is being said.
That's incredible.
It really is. It's like you said earlier, a universal translator was just kind of switched on. And this was seen as a sign that, this message, this good news about Jesus was meant for all people, not just for the Jews.
Right. And, speaking of the fact that it was for all people,
Yeah.
the source actually spends a good deal of time focusing on the Apostle Paul,
Ah, yes, the Apostle
and
Paul.
specifically his conversion.
Yeah, Saul, as he's known before becoming Paul.
Right. He's a persecutor of the early church,
That's right.
and he has this very dramatic encounter with Jesus.
On the road to Damascus, very dramatic, falls off his horse, blinded for 3 days.
Yeah, total change for him.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a transformation story. I mean, one day he's arresting Christians, the next day he's preaching the gospel.
And then, I mean, his story really becomes central to the book of Acts.
It does. It really does. And of
Well,
course, his writings, Paul's letters become a very central part of the New Testament itself.
absolutely. I mean,
Wow.
his missionary journeys are, I mean, really make up a good chunk of the book of Acts.
I mean, he travels all over the Roman Empire.
Yeah, spreading the message of Christianity.
Yeah, through modern day Turkey, Greece. He even ends up in Rome.
Right,
And along the way, he's planting churches, he's preaching, he's teaching, he's writing letters.
right. And all of that is included in the book of Acts.
You got it.
But, it's not all smooth sailing for Paul.
Oh, no, no, no.
He faces a lot of persecution.
He does indeed. And he's not the only one.
Yeah, in fact, the early church as a whole seems to face a lot of challenges and persecution.
Yes, they did. They faced persecution from the Romans, persecution from the Jewish authorities. I mean, they're constantly having to defend their beliefs.
Yeah, and so the source makes a point of saying that this persecution actually contributes in an interesting way to the growth and resilience of the early church.
Well, I think that's a great point. Often when you look at history movements that are persecuted very heavily, tend to, if they have a very strong core set of beliefs, can actually spread more rapidly and more effectively.
Yeah, and when you consider that the message of Christianity is one of love and forgiveness,
Right.
it kind of seems to fly in the face of what you might expect when people are being persecuted.
That's true. It really shows, how strongly these early Christians believed in what they were preaching.
Mhm.
And in the midst of suffering, they showed incredible love, incredible forgiveness. That was a really powerful testimony to the world around them. And people noticed it.
Right. I mean, they didn't shy away from their faith,
But absolutely.
all of the challenges they faced.
And I think that's something that we can even learn from today.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we face challenges in our own lives, it can be easy to kind of shy away from our faith.
Sure.
But the example of the early church shows us that it's actually in those times that our faith can really shine the brightest.
Right. And speaking of shining brightly and also bringing things to a close,
Yeah.
the book of Acts ends kind of, I don't know, on a cliffhanger.
It kind of does, doesn't it?
Paul is under house arrest in Rome,
That's right.
and, we don't know what happens next.
Yeah, he's awaiting trial.
Mhm.
We know from tradition, from other sources, that he was eventually executed. But the book of Acts itself ends with him still awaiting that trial.
And so, I thought that was a really interesting choice for the source to make, to end the summary there.
Yeah, I think it leaves us with a lot of questions.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder, is this story truly finished?
Right.
Is the spread of Christianity something that is ongoing and something that maybe we even have a part in.
I think it's a great point. I mean, the book of Acts, it doesn't give us all the answers, but it does give us a really inspiring story. It shows us how God can work through ordinary people to do extraordinary things.
Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway for our listeners.
I do too.
So thank you for diving into this really fascinating summary of the Book of Acts with me.
It's been a pleasure as always.
And we'll see you all on our next deep dive.
See you then.